You always think you'll feel it when a moment changes your life. A warning, a spark, a sound in the background telling you to pay attention. But sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just a strange heaviness in the air. The kind that makes you stop in the middle of your own hallway and wonder why your chest suddenly feels tight. That's how it began for you. Christmas morning. A day that used to fix things. A day that softened the sharp edges of your family. But this year, something felt wrong before you even opened your eyes. You couldn't explain it. You just knew. You walked into the living room hoping for normal, hoping for the warmth you grew up believing in. But the space under the tree was almost empty. No gifts for you. Just one box with Liam's name on it. Written in that bold handwriting he loves. The kind that announces itself before he even enters the room. You felt your stomach drop. Not because of the missing gifts, but because something inside you whispered, he did something. With a brother like Liam, instincts aren't paranoia. They're survival. You tried to brush it off. You tried to be reasonable. But the weight in your chest followed you down the hallway and straight into your room, where the truth was waiting like a punch you never saw coming. Your drawers open. Your closet half empty. Your desk disturbed just enough to say someone had been searching. Someone who knew exactly where to look. And you did know who. You whispered his name like an answer you didn't want to accept. Liam. Most people only see the smile he wears like armor. The confidence that fills a room the second he steps into it. But you've lived behind the scenes. You've seen the part of him that thrives not on winning, but on watching you lose. You've felt the way he bends situations just to pull attention toward himself. Even if it means tearing something out of your hands. You tried to breathe through the panic. But when you checked the top of your closet and felt nothing but dust, you knew the worst part wasn't the room being searched. It was what had been taken. The box. Your father's box. The last thing he gave you before he passed. The kind of thing no one touches unless they're cruel enough not to care. You felt your chest break in a way no one ever sees from the outside. A quiet kind of breaking. Private one. The kind that forces you to grow up in an instant. You walked out of your room. Not to beg. Not to argue. Just to face the truth you've tried to avoid for years. He wasn't complicated. He wasn't competitive. He wanted control. And he wasn't going to stop unless you did. You stopped in front of his door. You didn't knock. You didn't breathe. You just said the words that finally rose from the part of you that refused to stay small. I'm done letting you win. And that was the moment everything shifted. Not because you had a plan. Not because you felt brave. But because something inside you finally woke up. That night didn't just hurt you. Transformed you. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever go back to the way it was. The morning after everything broke open, you couldn't stay still. It felt like the whole house was holding its breath. Like the walls were waiting for you to decide who you were going to be next. You walked from room to room with this pressure in your chest. A kind that didn't come from fear, but from knowing the truth was out there, and you couldn't pretend anymore. You started searching your room because you needed answers. Real answers. Not the kind you've been feeding yourself for years. You opened drawers, dug through old notebooks, flipped through photos that still smelled like childhood. But as each familiar thing passed through your hands, the real weight came from what wasn't there. Your father's watch, the letters from old friends, tiny pieces of your life that grounded you, missing. And suddenly you knew this wasn't some childish rivalry. This wasn't about teasing or sibling fights. This was calculated. Someone wanted to rewrite parts of your story, remove the pieces that made you whole. And deep down, you already knew who was behind it. The attic came to mind, not because you wanted it to, but because your instincts dragged you there. You remembered Liam pretending to be helpful last week, lifting boxes like he was doing the family a favor. You climbed the stairs slowly, feeling the shift of cold dust in the air. Every step felt like stepping closer to a truth you didn't want but needed. When you reached the far corner and saw the boxes, your pulse kicked up. You opened the one with his name on it, and there, mixed between his belongings, were pieces of your life. Your photos, the watch, the letters tied with a ribbon as if he wanted them to look kept, not stolen. Your hands started trembling as you picked everything up, piece by piece. Relief hit you first, Then anger, deeper than you expected, sharper than you were ready for. You sank to the attic floor holding the watch. The metal was cold but familiar, grounding you in a way nothing else in that house did. For a moment, you let yourself imagine your father standing there, calm and steady in a way you desperately needed right now. Then something inside you shifted. The anger wasn't a spark anymore. It was a quiet, steady fire. You understood something in that moment. Liam didn't do this for fun. He did it for control. Your memories were never the target. You were. You whispered to yourself that this needed to end. Not someday now. But as you stood up, ready to leave, a soft creak made you turn. There was Aunt Rose, standing in the doorway, holding a tray of tea like she'd known you would come here. She walked toward you with a softness you rarely saw in this house. When you showed her what you found, she didn't look surprised. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes carried a strength you weren't expecting. She told you she knew something was wrong. She was just waiting for you to be ready to face it. For the first time in a long time, you didn't feel alone. You left the attic carrying that box like a shield. Every step felt like reclaiming a part of your life, and the house didn't feel silent anymore. It felt like a battlefield waiting for the moment everything would collide. Deep inside, you finally understood something powerful. The storm wasn't coming for you. The storm was coming from you. Christmas morning came, but it didn't feel like Christmas. Not for you. Not after the night you had. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, but none of it reached you. Your body moved, but your mind stayed stuck in that attic, holding the watch your father left you, realizing just how far Liam had gone. When you walked into the living room, there he was, neatly dressed, hair perfect, sitting like he belonged in every good moment the family ever had. And he was smiling, too wide, too polished, too intentional. It wasn't a smile. It was a mask stretched tight across something cold. You felt the air tighten around you. Your fists closed under the table. You prayed no one would hear how loud your heart was beating. Mom called everyone to gather, and you took your place on the floor near the tree. The lights reflected off the ornaments, but all you could see was the empty space where your name should have been. Every tag belonged to someone else. Every box confirmed the same truth. He had erased you from this morning too. Liam laughed at one of Dad's old jokes, and something inside you twisted painfully. That laugh used to mean something. Now it felt like an insult, like he was dragging a memory through the dirt just to watch you hurt. And then he leaned in. No dramatic pause. No raised voice, just a whisper sharp enough to slice through your chest. Nobody will believe you if you say anything. You froze, not because you feared he was right, but because the cruelty was so calm, so practiced, it almost stole your breath. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted you to know he held the power. For a moment, the anger surged so fast you thought you'd stand up and shout. But you didn't. You remembered Aunt Rose's voice from the night before. Take what's yours. So you held your breath. You steadied your hands. You refused to give him the satisfaction. And then Daniel walked in. Quiet, gentle, carrying a small bag of gifts. His presence felt like a lifeline. When he handed you a neatly wrapped box and whispered, "Merry Christmas," your throat tightened. Not because of the gift, but because someone saw you. Because someone cared enough to make sure you didn't disappear today. You saw the way Liam's expression shifted. Barely a flicker, but enough. Daniel giving you something, anything, punctured his perfect control. And in that tiny crack, you felt hope. But it didn't last long. Liam's eyes met yours again, colder than before, reminding you that this wasn't a game to him. It was a territory he thought he owned. Daniel leaned closer, asking if you were okay. You nodded, even though the truth sat heavy in your chest. You could feel Liam's gaze drilling into your back, waiting for you to break. But you didn't. You breathed. You remembered the attic, the watch, the letters, the truth. And for the first time that morning, you realized something. He could take objects. He could take attention. He could take moments. But he couldn't take your will. The laughter around you grew louder. The gifts kept opening. The morning went on. But you sat there quietly, feeling a new strength forming inside you. His smile wasn't a smile. It was a warning. and you were finally ready to answer it. By the time evening settled into the house, the Christmas lights didn't feel warm anymore. They felt mocking. Every soft glow, every reflection on the ornaments, just reminded you how much pretending you'd done all day. Pretending you weren't hurting. Pretending you didn't see the way Liam kept watching you like he owned the room. Pretending you hadn't spent the morning piecing your life back together in an attic. You reached a point where your chest couldn't hold the pressure anymore. Something had to break. And for the first time, it wasn't going to be you. You found him in the kitchen, leaning casually against the counter like he was posing for a photograph only he cared about. That same smug smile tugged at his mouth. Calm, confident, rehearsed. The sight of him made your stomach twist, but you didn't turn away this time. You stepped forward instead. Liam, you said, and you hated how shaky your voice sounded at first. But even trembling, the words came out steady enough to make him lift his head. He smirked. What now? You swallowed hard. We need to talk. About everything you've taken. He tilted his head slightly. You're still on about that? The casual tone dug into you like a hook. He wanted you to doubt yourself. He wanted you to shrink. He always did. This isn't a misunderstanding, you said, feeling your voice harden. You hid my father's things. You hid my letters. You stole my gifts. You knew exactly what you were doing. He laughed under his breath. Quiet, cruel. You're too sensitive. You always have been. And that was the moment something inside you finally snapped into place. His words didn't break you like they used to. They lit something. A fire you didn't even know was waiting. You think sensitivity is weakness, you said, stepping closer. But it's not. It's why I see you clearly now. It's why I know exactly what you've been doing. And it's why I'm done letting you walk over me. His smile faltered. Just a flicker. But you caught it. For the first time, he felt cornered. Not you. You turned from him, not out of fear, but because you refused to let him pull you into another pointless argument he'd twist to his advantage. You climbed the stairs to the attic with a determination that surprised you. Up there, everything felt different tonight. You weren't searching anymore, you were reclaiming. You lifted your father's watch, feeling its weight settle into your palm like a steady heartbeat. You held your old letters against your chest, realizing how much of yourself you had almost lost. This is mine, you whispered, and for once, the words didn't feel fragile. They felt true. You spent the evening putting every piece back in its place, grounding yourself one memory at a time. You weren't planning revenge. Not yet. You were rebuilding the parts of yourself he had tried to erase. When you finally walked out of the attic, the house felt changed. Not because it was quieter, but because you were. For the first time in years, you felt the ground under your feet. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. And you promised yourself silently, fiercely, that he would never hold that power again. I used to believe I knew Liam. I thought his selfish habits, his arrogance, and his jealousy were just small flaws, things I had learned to live with. But after getting my things back, after finally seeing the lies he hid in that house, something inside me changed. I started noticing patterns I had ignored for years. Tiny cracks in his stories, strange coincidences, moments that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. That's when the truth began to show itself. It started with a simple letter I found stuck behind my old desk, the desk where I used to study for hours. At first, I thought it was just an old bill or something unimportant. But when I opened it, my entire body froze. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. It wasn't a bill. It was an opportunity one had waited for, worked for, dreamed of. A chance to present my work to a major company. Something that could have changed my entire future. I remembered applying for it. I remembered waiting for a reply. I remembered thinking I simply wasn't chosen. But the letter in my hand told a different story. The offer had come. They had chosen me. I just never saw it. Someone had opened the envelope. Someone had signed my name and declined the invitation. Someone had taken it and hidden it. And in that moment I knew exactly who. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down. Liam had done more than steal my childhood memories. He had stolen my future too. He had made sure I never got the chance to rise higher than him. All those times he joked about me aiming too high or dreaming too big. He wasn't joking. He was warning me. He had been sabotaging me for years. The betrayal filled my chest like smoke. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted answers, answers only he could give. But I also knew I couldn't confront him yet. Not without knowing everything. So I kept searching. Then I heard his voice. Liam. Laughing. Bragging. He'll never notice. I've handled everything. He actually thinks it was his own fault. My stomach twisted. My vision blurred. He sounded so proud. Like ruining my chances, hiding my achievements, and messing with my life was nothing more than a game to entertain him. He enjoyed watching me struggle. He enjoyed seeing me doubt myself. He enjoyed breaking me. I couldn't breathe for a moment. The attic felt too small, the air too heavy. I pressed the phone to my chest and shut my eyes, trying to stop the burning in them. I thought losing my belongings was the worst he had done. I was wrong. He had been poisoning my path for years. Quietly, cleverly, confidently. Later that evening, I gathered my courage and spoke to Mom. I asked her questions carefully, gently. She looked confused at first, then uneasy. I could see fear and guilt mixing in her eyes. She admitted she had noticed strange things too. Missing papers, mixed up messages, moments where Liam walked in at the perfect time, or said things he should not have known. But she had brushed it off, trusting him the way a mother shouldn't have. Her guilt was heartbreaking. She hadn't realized what he was doing. None of us had. When I finally returned to my room, the weight of everything hit me at once. I broke down. I let the tears fall. I let the pain explode. I had trusted him. I had defended him. I had believed he still cared. But the storm inside me didn't drown me. It sharpened me. I wiped my tears and looked at my father's watch. The one piece of truth I still had. Holding it made me feel grounded, clear, awake. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of Liam. I was done being fooled. Done being silent. I gathered every clue I'd found. Every letter. Every recording. Every memory. I mapped it out in my mind, step by step. I knew now what I had to do. Liam thought he had outsmarted me. He thought he had control. He thought I would break quietly. I realized I couldn't keep reclaiming my life in pieces anymore. Holding my father's watch, I understood that Liam had hidden too much, lied too long, and the family deserved the truth. The anger inside me wasn't quiet anymore. It was sharp, blazing. I took a deep breath. I would call a family meeting. I would speak. I would confront. When everyone gathered, the room felt smaller than ever. Mom, Aunt Rose, Daniel, and a few relatives. Faces full of curiosity, suspicion, anticipation. Looked at me. My chest tightened, but I straightened my shoulders. Across the table, Liam sat, pretending calm, smug, but the tension in his body gave him away. I could feel it. I could feel everything he thought he had hidden. And I wasn't afraid anymore. I started quietly, my voice trembling but steady enough to carry. There are things I need to say, things Liam has done that have hurt me, and all of us, in ways you might not realize. A scoff, a casual lean back from him. "Oh, here we go," he muttered, like my words meant nothing. But I didn't falter. "He's hidden my gifts, my letters, my father's watch," I said, voice growing stronger with each word. "He's stolen opportunities one worked for, lied to you, Mom, and tried to make me look like the problem. I have proof, and I want to be heard." Mom paled. Daniel's hand found mine under the table. Aunt Rose's eyes held me steady. I felt a flicker of strength I hadn't known I had. Liam's smirk faltered ever so slightly. I pressed on. "I have letters, recordings, and every item he tried to hide. Every lie, every scheme, every manipulation. I know about it." Silence fell like a weight. Even the twinkle of the Christmas lights seemed to pause, listening. Liam's eyes burned into me, calculating, searching for a way out. But there was none. "You're overreacting," he spat, trying his old charm. "Everything isn't about you." Aunt Rose stood, her voice cutting through the tension. Enough, Liam. You've lied and manipulated for too long. It's time to face the consequences. Daniel spoke next, recounting what he had witnessed when Liam hid my belongings. One by one, the evidence piled up, undeniable. Liam's calm cracked. The anger, the frustration, the fear spilled out. And in that storm, he revealed everything. The gifts, the letters, the meticulous control he had tried to maintain. Nothing was hidden anymore. Mom gasped, hand over her mouth, tears filling her eyes. I wanted to comfort her, but I stayed strong. Liam's power over me, over my story, was gone. Finally, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Silence followed, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was freeing. The storm I had carried alone for so long had finally erupted. The truth was out, and Liam no longer controlled the narrative of my life. Aunt Rose's hand on my shoulder steadied me. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "It wasn't easy, but you stood up for yourself." Daniel smiled, eyes warm and proud. Mom whispered, trembling, I should have seen it."
I'm sorry.
I nodded, a strange mix of relief, sadness, and strength washing over me. This was only the beginning. Liam's fall had started, but my rise had just begun. For the first time in years, I felt the possibility of peace. The days after the family meeting felt unreal. The house was lighter, though tense, like it had been holding its breath for years. Liam hadn't returned, and for the first time in a long time, I could breathe without fear. The weight of his control over me had lifted, and in its place, something new began to grow: power. Quiet, steady, undeniable. I walked through the rooms I had once avoided, noticing details I had ignored. Sunlight spilling through the windows, the soft scent of pine mingling with cookies, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. The house wasn't just a building anymore. It was mine again, and with it, I started reclaiming more than objects. I reclaimed emotions he had buried. Pride, joy, small sparks of hope that I thought were gone forever. Daniel stayed nearby, helping me organize the living room, the attic, everything that had been disrupted. He didn't need to say anything. His presence reminded me I wasn't alone. Aunt Rose checked in with quiet guidance. Mom, still shaken, began to return to herself, her eyes holding both guilt and relief. She had been deceived, yes, but she was learning to trust again, and so was I. Even with the house feeling lighter, Liam's absence left a hollow. The confrontation had freed me, but it had also revealed the depth of betrayal. Years of trust stolen.
Moments a rasa.
Nothing he could say would undo it. And yet, hatred had faded, replaced by something sharper. Focus. Determination. A refusal to be broken again. I reflected on what I had learned. Liam's hidden things weren't just objects. They were symbols of control, proof of his desire to dominate. Reclaiming them wasn't about possessions. It was about reclaiming myself. Every letter, every photo, every keepsake restored marked a victory, a reclaiming of who I was. One evening, placing the last ornament on the tree, I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't see the frightened, hesitant version of myself anymore. I saw someone tempered by betrayal, someone who had endured and survived, someone who had fought back and won. The rise wasn't born from revenge. It came from standing up, from taking control, from refusing to be small. Mom peeked in, her voice soft. "You've changed," she said. I smiled, feeling the truth behind it, even if I couldn't fully articulate it. Daniel appeared, cocoa in hand, saying, "You've grown." And this time, I allowed myself to feel it, to feel proud without fear, without shadows looming. Liam had sparked this rise, even if unintentionally. Life would always hold betrayals, challenges, chaos. But the power to respond, to rebuild, to grow, that was mine. Completely, entirely mine. That night, I sat alone, cradling my father's watch. I didn't just reclaim objects. I reclaimed my voice, my dignity, my peace. A quiet joy bloomed inside me, steady and enduring. Liam's games had ended. Mine were only beginning. For the first time, I understood true power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself. And in that understanding, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. With Liam gone, the house finally felt quiet in a way that didn't press down on my chest. The tension that had been lurking for months seemed to lift, leaving space for something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Christmas morning this time didn't feel like a trap or a test. It felt mine. I walked slowly into the living room, glancing at the tree. The lights blinked softly, reflecting off the ornaments and casting tiny patterns on the walls. I knelt beside the tree and gently lifted my father's watch from the box. Its cool metal felt comforting in my hand, a reminder that some things, some values, some memories, could never be taken from me, no matter how hard someone tried. I opened the bundle of letters Liam had hidden, reading each one carefully. Some made me laugh, some made my chest ache, and some brought tears I hadn't realized I was holding back. With every word, I felt myself reconnecting with the person I had been before the lies, before the betrayals, before Liam's control. Piece by piece, I reclaimed my life. Not just my possessions, but my memories, my emotions, and my sense of self. Daniel came in quietly, carrying a tray of cocoa and cookies. He didn't say much, just sat next to me and offered a reassuring smile. His presence reminded me that I wasn't alone, that I had allies who understood my pain and supported my strength. "You've come a long way," he whispered, and for the first time, I let myself believe it. Mom followed soon after, her eyes red from tears but soft with understanding. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she said quietly. "I should have noticed." I shook my head gently, holding back the urge to scold her. Instead, I let her hug me. For the first time in a long while, I felt the warmth of family without the shadow of betrayal looming over us. I decided it was time to put everything back in order. I carefully returned each letter to its proper envelope, placed my father's watch where it belonged, and even rehung the ornaments Liam had tried to move. It wasn't just about organizing the house, it was about reclaiming control. Each small action reminded me that I was no longer his victim, no longer under his thumb. As I worked, a strange feeling began to rise in me, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Quiet, cautious, fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. The Christmas tree's soft glow reflected in my eyes, and I realized that this Christmas, for the first time, I could actually enjoy it. Not because the day was perfect, but because I had taken back the part of my life that mattered most. Me. Later, as I sat with Daniel and Mom, sipping cocoa and watching the lights blink, I let myself smile. It wasn't a forced smile. It wasn't a smile that hid fear or pain. It was mine, pure and quiet, but strong. I realized that joy isn't about perfect moments or unbroken families. It's about reclaiming what's yours, finding peace after chaos, and choosing to move forward. Even though Liam had stolen pieces of my life, even though the scars of his betrayal would remain, I had the power to rebuild. I could make new memories, create new joys, and protect myself from anyone who tried to take that away again. That night, I stepped outside into the cold winter air. The snow crunched under my boots, crisp and fresh. I looked back at the house, at the warm glow of the Christmas lights, and felt a quiet satisfaction. This year, Christmas was mine again. And I knew, deep down, that taking back my life didn't stop at Christmas. This was just the beginning. I truly believed Liam was gone forever. After everything he did, the lies, the betrayals, the quiet ways he poisoned my life, I thought his disappearance was the final page of that painful chapter. After weeks of silence, I finally slept deeper, breathed easier, and woke up without the weight of him pressing against my ribs. But life never lets you close a chapter without testing whether you're strong enough to keep it shut. That morning was calm. Too calm. I was in the kitchen sipping coffee, letting its warmth steady me. The heater hummed softly. The floorboards creaked in the familiar old rhythm. Outside, the world was muted by winter air, and inside, for the first time in months, I felt safe. Then I heard it. The front door creaking open, slow, familiar, wrong. My breath caught mid-sip. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs so hard it almost hurt. Every muscle in my body locked as if freezing could protect me. And then, a soft laugh. Not loud, not mocking, but unmistakably Liam. A sound I had once loved but later feared. A sound that had lived inside my nightmares long after he walked away. I turned slowly, grounding myself on the kitchen counter. Liam. He stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame the same way he always used to, as if every room he entered belonged to him. But something was different. His smile wasn't smug. His shoulders weren't loose with confidence. There was a tension around his eyes, a cautiousness, almost fear. He looked at me like a man who suddenly realized the person he once controlled no longer lived here. "You're back," I said, voice steady, cold enough to frost the windows. He swallowed before speaking. I wanted to talk. After everything. I didn't move, didn't even blink. I let him see exactly how far away he was from me now. "Talk," I repeated. "Now? After the lies, the manipulation, the stealing? After disappearing like a coward?" He lowered his gaze. I saw his jaw tighten, the way it always did when he was cornered. But this time he didn't fight. He didn't defend himself. "I didn't realize how far I'd gone," he said quietly. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop myself. "I didn't need your realization, Liam. I needed honesty when it mattered. I needed you to stop before everything broke." He exhaled shakily, as if every sentence I spoke hit somewhere he wasn't used to feeling. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry. Truly. No, I cut him off sharply. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I spent rebuilding myself after every lie. Sorry doesn't fix the things you stole. My father's watch, my letters, my peace. Sorry doesn't undo the control you tried to have over my life." For the first time, I watched fear flicker in his eyes. Not fear of me yelling. Not fear of consequences. Fear of who I had become. Fear of facing the version of me he never believed I could be. A strength rose inside me. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, solid.
Mine.
He took a step forward, small and careful. "I want to make things right," he murmured. "Can we start over?" I shook my head slowly.
No, Liam.
"You don't get to walk in and reset my life because you suddenly feel guilty. You made choices, and now I get to choose too." "What do you choose?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I choose myself," I said. Finally. Silence filled the kitchen, heavier than any argument we ever had. He looked at me for a long time, searching for the weakness he used to find so easily. But there was none. Eventually he stepped back, defeated. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll go." It's strange the way silence can feel alive. You sit in a room that once felt heavy with betrayal, and suddenly, it feels open, free. I used to think that taking back what Liam stole from me was enough. My things, my memories, my small treasures. But standing here now, I realized that was just the surface. That was the easy part. The real fight was inside me, in the spaces I hadn't dared to touch for years. The fear, the doubt, the quiet surrender I carried like a second skin. You don't see it immediately. Creeps in slowly. How much weight fear can place on your chest. How much power it has when you let it live inside you. I used to feel it everywhere, in my voice, in my hands, in the way I avoided certain rooms, certain shadows. I carried him with me even when he wasn't there. And it's exhausting. You try to convince yourself that moving on is just about action. But real freedom is quieter. It's internal. It's reclaiming the spaces inside yourself that you left open for someone else to control. I remember the moment it shifted. Standing in front of the Christmas tree, looking at the ornaments, the lights reflecting in the quiet room, I felt something stir. Not anger, not revenge, not the thrill of getting even. Something warmer. Something I thought I had lost. Peace. It started small, like a faint glow in my chest. And it grew, filling me until I realized I was breathing without holding back. I was here, fully, present, whole. And when Daniel, Mom, and Aunt Rose joined me for dinner, It wasn't about making up for lost time or pretending the past didn't exist. It was about existing fully without fear. I laughed in ways I had forgotten I could, spoke in ways that weren't cautious, careful, or measured to avoid confrontation. My voice had returned, not loud or forced, but steady, unwavering, undeniable. I realized then that no one could take that from me, because it was mine first. Always mine. You have to understand, strength isn't something you grab. It's something you grow into. You nurture it through pain, through quiet victories that no one else sees. Every step of reclaiming what was yours, the things, the words, the moments, wasn't just about ownership. It was a rehearsal, a training ground, a proof that the life you're willing to fight for is still waiting on the other side of fear. When I finally stepped outside into the cold night, I felt it. The air sharp against my skin, the world vast and quiet around me. And in that moment, I whispered something to myself that had never been possible before. This time, I choose me. Not my anger, not my pride, not the person I was forced to be. Me. Fully, unapologetically, without hesitation. It was more than reclaiming what Liam took. It was reclaiming myself in full. And I understood then that no one can shadow you unless you invite them in. No one can own the parts of you that are yours to keep. You can feel broken. You can feel scared. But when you step into the light of your own reclaiming, the world adjusts. The past remains where it belongs, and the present opens like a door you've always known was there, but never dared to cross. Tonight I am here, whole, alive, stronger than ever before. And the quiet, powerful truth that hums through me is this: nothing and no one can dim the life you choose for yourself. Not fear, not betrayal, not shadows of the past. You step forward and you take it all back. Piece by piece, breath by breath, moment by moment. And for the first time, you know what freedom really feels like.